I'm Cora, 68 years old, and until last Christmas, I lived a quiet, frugal life in my modest Massachusetts home despite secretly having $12 million in my bank account. My late husband, Jack, left me comfortable, but nobody knew just how comfortable, including our only son, William. That all changed during our holiday dinner when William's wife, Stephanie, discovered my secret and made demands that tore our family apart. If you're watching this from somewhere that celebrates family over fortune, drop a like and subscribe. Let's see if you would have handled what happened next any differently than I did. I wasn't born into money, not even close. My parents were factory workers in a small town outside of Boston. Every dollar was accounted for in our household, and I learned early on that nothing comes without hard work. I carried those values into adulthood, working 2 jobs to put myself through nursing school. That's where I met Jack, my husband of 43 years, before cancer took him 3 years ago. Jack was studying business and economics, brilliant with numbers, but just as frugal as I was. We both grew up in families where money was tight, and we bonded over our shared values of simplicity and financial responsibility. After graduation, Jack went into investment banking while I worked as a nurse at Massachusetts General. We lived simply saving every extra penny. What I didn't know until years later was that Jack had an extraordinary talent for investing. He started small, making careful investments with our modest savings, but his portfolios grew exponentially over the decades. Jack never wanted to flaunt our growing wealth. "Money changes how people see you, Cora," he would say. "I'd rather be judged for our character than our bank account." I agreed wholeheartedly. We continued living in the same 3-bedroom house we bought as newlyweds, drove reliable cars until they couldn't drive anymore, and found joy in simple pleasures rather than luxury. When William came along, we raised him with the same values. He wore hand-me-downs, earned his allowance through chores, and understood the importance of saving for what matters. William was a sweet, sensitive child who grew into a kind but somewhat passive young man. He worked hard in school and made us proud when he earned a scholarship to study engineering. It was during his junior year at college that William met Stephanie. She was studying marketing and had a magnetic personality that drew people in. When William first brought her home, I noticed her designer handbag and perfectly manicured nails, but I didn't think much of it. She was polite, engaged in conversation, and seemed to genuinely care for my son. As they continued dating, I began noticing small things. Stephanie would comment on our cozy home with a tone that suggested she meant small. She asked questions about family heirlooms or furniture pieces, always wondering about their value. When Jack and I gave William a reliable used car for graduation, Stephanie's smile tightened when she saw it wasn't new. Still, William was happy, and that's what mattered to us. They married a year after college graduation, with Stephanie planning an elaborate wedding that I later learned put them into significant debt. Jack and I contributed what we felt was reasonable, but Stephanie had champagne tastes that didn't align with their entry-level salary budget. They bought a starter home in a decent neighborhood, but within 2 years they had moved to a much larger house in an upscale area. William had received a promotion, but nowhere near enough to justify such an expensive upgrade. When I visited, their home was filled with new furniture, high-end appliances, and luxury items that seemed out of place for a young couple just starting out. "We're building the life we want," Stephanie explained when I carefully inquired about their spending. "You have to project success to achieve it." William seemed less certain. I caught him studying bills with a furrowed brow when Stephanie wasn't looking. Once he asked Jack for investment advice, mentioning they were carrying some credit card debt that was getting a bit concerning. Jack and I discussed whether we should tell William about our financial situation, perhaps help them more substantially, but we agreed that handing over money without addressing the underlying spending issues wouldn't solve anything. Instead, Jack set up a small investment account for William and taught him some basics, hoping the lessons would sink in. When Jack got sick, everything changed. His battle with pancreatic cancer lasted 11 months, and during that time he updated his will and organized all our finances. "The money is yours, Cora," he told me during one of his more lucid moments in hospice. "You worked just as hard for it as I did, making a home, supporting my career, raising our son. Use it well, and when the time is right, help William. But make sure he's ready for it." After Jack passed, I was surprised to learn the full extent of our wealth. $12 million carefully grown over decades of disciplined investing and compound interest. I kept the information to myself, not even telling William. I was still processing my grief, and such a revelation would only complicate things during an already difficult time. In the 3 years since Jack's death, William and Stephanie's financial situation deteriorated further. William's engineering firm went through layoffs, and While he found another position, it came with a significant pay cut. Stephanie, meanwhile, refused to downsize their lifestyle. She had started a small marketing consultancy that she claimed was about to take off, though I never saw evidence of significant clients or income. They began asking for loans more frequently, first for property taxes, then for car repairs, and eventually for mortgage payments. I helped when I could, giving them a few thousand here and there from what appeared to be my retirement savings, but I never revealed the full truth. Each time the money disappeared without creating any meaningful change in their financial habits. As another Christmas approached, I could feel the tension building in our small family unit. Stephanie's requests had become more persistent, and her attitude toward me had cooled considerably when I suggested they might consider selling their house and moving to something more affordable. "You just don't understand modern finances, Cora," she said dismissively. "Building wealth is different now than in your day. Sometimes you have to spend money to make money." I bit my tongue, knowing that financial principles haven't actually changed that much. What I didn't realize was how desperate their situation had become, or how that desperation would explode during what should have been a peaceful holiday celebration. As the months passed, Stephanie's interest in my personal finances grew increasingly obvious. During Sunday dinners or phone calls, she would casually inquire about my retirement accounts, whether Jack had life insurance, or if I was managing okay on my own. The questions always had a veneer of concern but felt invasive and calculated. "Mom seems fine with money," William would say, trying to change the subject. "Let's talk about something else." But Stephanie was persistent. "I just worry about her all alone in that old house. There must be so many expenses to keep up with." The irony wasn't lost on me. My modest home was fully paid off decades ago, while they struggled with a mortgage that consumed nearly half of William's monthly salary. Their financial situation was clearly deteriorating, evidenced by the increasing frequency of their requests for temporary help. One evening in September, William called me alone, his voice tense and quiet, as if he was hiding in another room to make the call. "Mom, I hate to ask this, but we're behind on the mortgage again. Stephanie's business had some setbacks, and my company delayed bonuses. Could you possibly help us out just until things turn around?" This was the third such request in 6 months. I transferred the money, but afterward sent William links to financial counseling services. "Honey, I'm worried about you. This pattern isn't sustainable." "I know, Mom. It's just temporary," he promised, but the strain in his voice suggested otherwise. A week later, Stephanie called, which was unusual since she typically let William handle family communications. "Cora, I wanted to thank you for helping us out. It means so much," she began sweetly. "William and I were talking about your situation, and we're concerned about that big old house. Have you ever thought about downsizing? You could probably sell it for a good price in today's market, move into something smaller and more manageable, and have extra cash for your retirement." The suggestion caught me off guard. "I'm quite comfortable here, Stephanie. This is my home." "Of course, but at your age, planning ahead is important. And if you sold, you might have extra to help William establish himself properly. His career would really take off if he could invest in some connections and opportunities." I ended the conversation politely but firmly. The implication was clear: sell my home and give them the proceeds. What troubled me most wasn't the request itself, but the entitled reasoning behind it. October brought news that William and Stephanie's financial struggles were worse than I thought. Through a mutual friend who worked at their bank, I learned they were 90 days behind on their mortgage and facing possible foreclosure. When I gently inquired about their situation during our next call, William brushed it off. "We're restructuring some things. Stephanie has a big client about to sign. Don't worry, Mom." Meanwhile, Stephanie became increasingly vocal about my cheap lifestyle. During a brief visit, she commented on my decade-old television, my practical furniture, and even my grocery shopping habits. "You should enjoy life more, Cora. Jack wouldn't want you living like this. What's the point of saving every penny at your age?" Little did she know that my simple lifestyle wasn't from necessity but choice. The $12 million sat in diverse investments quietly growing, while I lived on a small portion of the returns. As the holiday season approached, tensions rose further. Traditionally, Christmas was hosted at my house, a tradition from when Jack was alive. This year, Stephanie pushed back. "We should really have Christmas at our place," she suggested during a November phone call. "Our dining room is bigger, and we have that new entertainment system. Plus, it would be easier for you not to worry about cooking." I enjoy hosting, I replied. It's no trouble. But our house is so much nicer, she persisted, not even attempting to hide her meaning. William eventually intervened. Mom's house is fine, Steph. It's tradition. She relented, but not without adding, well, at least let me bring some decorations to spruce the place up. It's always so basic there. The comment stung. My Christmas decorations were cherished family heirlooms, many handmade by Jack or collected during our travels. Their sentimental value far exceeded their modest appearance. In early December, William called with another request that made my heart sink. Mom, I hate to ask, but Stephanie has her heart set on a particular watch for Christmas. It's a bit out of our budget right now. Could you maybe help with that as my Christmas gift I'd pay you back? William, that doesn't sound like a wise purchase given your current situation, I said carefully. I know, but things are really tense at home. Her business is struggling and she's been upset. This would mean a lot to her. Against my better judgment, I sent him the money knowing it was enabling poor financial decisions but wanting to keep peace in their home. As Christmas approached, the pressure built like a pot about to boil over. Stephanie made several comments about family support and how parents should help establish their children during our brief interactions. William looked increasingly stressed, losing weight and developing dark circles under his eyes. I decorated my home with care, placing each ornament with love and remembering Christmases past with Jack. I prepared traditional recipes and wrapped thoughtful gifts within my budget. I had no idea that this Christmas would permanently change our family dynamics or that Stephanie's true nature would be fully revealed before the holiday came to an end. Christmas morning dawned bright and clear with fresh snow blanketing my garden and icicles hanging from the eaves like crystal decorations. I woke early, excited despite the underlying tensions of the past months. Christmas had always been Jack's favorite holiday, and continuing our traditions was my way of keeping his spirit alive. I spent the morning cooking the familiar rhythms, comforting, as I prepared Jack's special bourbon-glazed ham sweet potato casserole and homemade rolls. The house filled with delicious aromas and warm memories. My modest tree glowed in the corner of the living room, adorned with ornaments collected over decades, each with its own story and meaning. William and Stephanie were due at 2 o'clock. At 1:55, William called, Mom, we're running a little late. Stephanie needed extra time to get ready. We should be there in about 30 minutes. I heard tension in his voice and muffled voices in the background. No problem, dear. The food will keep warm. They finally arrived at 3:15. William hugged me warmly, his eyes apologetic. Stephanie followed behind, impeccably dressed in what appeared to be new clothes, her expression barely concealing her disappointment as she surveyed my decorations. Your tree is quaint, she remarked, setting down an armful of expertly wrapped gifts. I noticed the designer labels on the packages. Thank you. Many of these ornaments have been in our family for generations, I replied, choosing to take her comment as a compliment. William jumped in. The house looks great, Mom, and it smells amazing in here. As we moved to the living room for pre-dinner drinks, Stephanie's gaze lingered on various items in my home, as if mentally appraising their value and finding them lacking. When I served eggnog in my mother's old crystal cups, she asked, Are these antiques? They look quite old, just family heirlooms. I answered, not mentioning that the complete set was indeed valuable, one of the few genuinely expensive things I owned. Dinner began pleasantly enough, with William leading the conversation, telling stories about work and asking about my volunteer activities at the hospital. Stephanie remained mostly quiet, picking at her food and frequently checking her phone under the table. When we opened gifts, the contrast became stark. My presents for them were practical and thoughtful. A hand-knit scarf for William in his favorite colors that had taken me months to complete, and a beautiful cookbook for Stephanie, who had once mentioned enjoying cooking. Stephanie's smile tightened as she unwrapped the cookbook. How traditional. Thank you. William seemed genuinely touched by his scarf, wrapping it around his neck immediately. This is amazing, Mom. Must have taken forever. When it came time for their gifts, William presented me with a lovely photo album he had created filled with pictures of our family through the years, including many of Jack. It brought tears to my eyes. Then came Stephanie's moment. She handed William a small box with dramatic flair. Inside was an extremely expensive watch, the very one he had asked me to help pay for. You deserve something special, she announced loudly, glancing at me as if to emphasize the contrast between our gifts. William looked uncomfortable as he thanked her, knowing I recognized the watch and understood the financial irresponsibility it represented. As dinner progressed, Stephanie gradually became more pointed in her comments. "This house must be getting expensive to maintain at your age, Cora. Have you thought about those senior communities? I hear they take all the maintenance worries away." Before I could respond, she continued, "I mean, what's the point of living, no, simply so when life is short, Jack worked so hard. He would have wanted you to enjoy yourself more." I felt a flare of indignation at her invoking Jack's name. Jack and I shared the same values about money, Stephanie. We found joy in experiences and relationships, not things. She gave a dismissive laugh. "Well, times change. William and I believe in living in the moment and investing in quality." "Quality has many definitions," I replied carefully. The conversation grew increasingly strained as Stephanie made more comments about wasted potential and living comfortably. William tried to steer us to safer topics, but the tension had built too high. During a momentary lull when I went to the kitchen to check on dessert, I realized I had left some financial paperwork on my small desk in the corner of the dining room. I had been reviewing year-end statements before their arrival and forgotten to put them away. From the kitchen, I heard Stephanie excuse herself to use the bathroom, but the footsteps went in the wrong direction. I returned to the dining room just as William was clearing plates. Stephanie was nowhere to be seen. "Where's Stephanie?" I asked. "Bathroom, I think," William replied. A feeling of unease washed over me. The bathroom was in the opposite direction from where I had heard footsteps. I walked toward my desk and found it empty, the papers moved. Just then, Stephanie emerged from my small home office adjacent to the dining room, her face flushed and her eyes wide. In her hand was my most recent bank statement. Prominently displayed on the front page was the total portfolio value, $12,347 on 892.3. "What is this?" she demanded, her voice shrill. "All this time you've been sitting on millions while we struggle." William looked up in confusion. "What are you talking about, Steph?" She thrust the statement toward him. "Your mother is worth over $12 million, William, $12 million, and she watches us drown in debt without lifting a finger." The color drained from William's face as he looked from the statement to me. "Mom, is this true?" I felt my heart pounding. This was not how I had wanted him to find out. "William, yes, your father made some very successful investments over the years. I was going to tell you when the time was right." "When the time was right?" Stephanie's voice rose even higher. "We've been asking for help for months. We could lose our house." "I've helped every time you asked," I replied, trying to keep my voice steady. "With pennies," Stephanie spat. "A few thousand here and there when you're sitting on a fortune?" William stood frozen, the bank statement in his hands. "Why didn't you tell me, Mom?" Before I could answer, Stephanie continued her tirade. "This is unbelievable. Living in this shabby little house pretending you're barely getting by while hoarding millions. What kind of mother does that to her only child?" "I wasn't hoarding anything," I said firmly. "Your father and I always believed that money doesn't define happiness or success. We wanted to raise William with values, not wealth." "Values won't pay our mortgage," Stephanie snapped. "We deserve that money more than you do. You're just one old woman. What are you going to do with $12 million? William finally spoke, his voice quiet. "Stephanie, stop. That's enough." But she was too far gone in her anger and greed. "No, it's not enough. Your mother has been lying to us for years. All those times we stressed about bills, all the sacrifices we made, and she could have fixed everything with the stroke of a pen. The truth of her character was finally laid bare, all pretense abandoned. Her eyes gleamed with entitlement and resentment as she made her final devastating claim. I deserve that money more than either of you. Do you know what I've put up with? Living with your weak, underachieving son who can't even provide properly, playing nice with his frugal old mother. I deserve compensation for what I've endured." The room fell silent. In that moment, the last remnant of our family Christmas shattered irreparably. William's face reflected shock pain and the first glimmer of understanding about the woman he had married. I stood my ground, sad but resolute, as Stephanie made demands that would forever change the course of our family's future. The silence that followed Stephanie's outburst was deafening. William's face had turned ashen, his hands trembling as he still held the bank statement. I reached for the dining room chair to steady myself, the weight of the moment pressing down on me. "William," I finally said, "I never meant for you to find out this way. Your father and I always planned to share this with you, but we wanted to make sure that money wouldn't change who you are or what you value." "Don't listen to her excuses," Stephanie hissed. "She didn't trust you. She watched us struggle when she could have helped. What kind of mother does that?" William set the statement down carefully as if it might burn his fingers. "I need to process this," he said quietly. His eyes, so like his father's, looked at me with confusion and hurt. "We need more than processing," Stephanie insisted, her voice hard. "We need action. We need what's rightfully ours." She turned to me, all pretense gone. "You're going to transfer at least $2 million to us. Tonight. It's the least you can do after all these years of deception." "Stephanie," William said sharply, "stop making demands." But she was relentless. "Why are you defending her? She lied to you your entire life. Your father made all this money and she's keeping it from his only son. Is that what he would have wanted?" I felt a surge of anger at her invoking Jack's wishes. Jack and I were partners in everything, including our financial decisions. He would never have wanted his hard-earned money to fund irresponsible spending or be given because of threats and accusations. Stephanie laughed bitterly. "Oh, now I'm irresponsible. I'm trying to build a business and create a beautiful home. I'm trying to give William the life he deserves, since his career has been such a disappointment." William flinched at her words, and I saw a new realization dawn in his eyes. "William, we need to leave," Stephanie announced suddenly. "I can't stay here another minute with her. We'll have our lawyer contact you tomorrow, Cora." She gathered her coat and purse. "This money belongs in our family, not sitting in your accounts while you live like a pauper. If you don't do the right thing willingly, we have ways to make it happen." "What are you talking about?" William asked, looking increasingly alarmed. "We can challenge her competency," Stephanie said coldly. "A 68-year-old widow living alone, making irrational financial decisions, refusing to spend money even on basic comforts. It's not normal, William. No court would think she's managing her affairs properly." I felt a chill at the threat. "You would try to declare me incompetent because I choose to live simply?" "I'll do whatever it takes," Stephanie replied. "And when we have children, you can forget about seeing your grandchildren unless you start being more generous with your fortune." It was the cruelest blow yet, threatening to use hypothetical grandchildren as pawns. William finally seemed to snap out of his shock. "That's enough," he said, his voice stronger than I'd heard in years. "We're not threatening my mother, and we're certainly not taking her to court. This is still my family, Stephanie." "Choose your words carefully," she warned him. "Remember whose side you need to be on." William looked between us, torn between loyalty to his wife and the dawning recognition of her true nature. "I need time to think," he said finally. "There's nothing to think about," Stephanie insisted. "Either you're with me on this or you're not. She owes us William. Think about what we could do with that money, all our problems solved overnight." The Christmas dinner ended abruptly after that. Stephanie stormed out to wait in their car while William lingered awkwardly in the entryway. "I'm sorry, Mom," he said softly. "This isn't how today was supposed to go." "I know, sweetheart. And I'm sorry, too, for not finding the right time to tell you about the money. Your father and I only wanted what was best for you." He nodded, unable to meet my eyes. "I'll call you tomorrow. I need to figure some things out." As I watched them drive away, the Christmas lights blinking silently in the window, I felt utterly alone. The secret that Jack and I had guarded for so long was now exposed in the worst possible way. I cleared the half-eaten dinner, blew out the candles, and sat in Jack's old armchair in the dark, wondering if I had made a terrible mistake in keeping the truth from William all these years. What I didn't know then was that Stephanie's Christmas revelation was just the beginning. The weeks to come would bring challenges I never expected, forcing all of us to show our true colors and make choices that would permanently alter the course of our family's future. The days following Christmas were eerily quiet. William didn't call as promised, and my attempts to reach him went straight to voicemail. I left messages expressing my love and willingness to talk whenever he was ready, but the silence stretched painfully. On December 28th, I received a formal-looking email from Stephanie. The subject line read, "Financial Resolution Proposal," as if our family crisis was a business negotiation. The message detailed their reasonable expectations for a transfer of funds $3 million immediately, with another $2 million placed in a trust for their future children. There was no mention of William's input or feelings, just Stephanie's cold demands and veiled threats about exploring all available legal options if I didn't comply within 10 days. I didn't respond, hoping to speak directly with William instead. New Year's Day brought an unexpected development. My sister-in-law, Barbara, called, her voice tight with disapproval. "Cora, I've just had the most disturbing conversation with Stephanie. She says you've been hiding millions from the family and refusing to help William when they're struggling financially. Is this true?" My heart sank. Stephanie had begun spreading her version of events to the extended family. "It's much more complicated than that, Barbara. Jack made some very successful investments over the years, but we chose to live modestly and raise William with strong values not dependent on wealth." "But they could lose their home." Cora, Stephanie was in tears. "How could you let that happen?" It took nearly an hour to explain my perspective, and even then I wasn't sure Barbara fully understood. By the end of the week, I'd received similar calls from Jack's brother, 2 cousins, and even our former next-door neighbor. Stephanie was methodically reaching out to anyone connected to our family, painting me as a miserly, heartless mother hoarding wealth while her son suffered. More concerning were the social media posts. While never mentioning me by name, Stephanie began sharing cryptic messages about family betrayal and toxic relatives who care more about money than relationships. The comments filled with sympathetic responses and outrage on her behalf. 10 days after her ultimatum, I finally heard from William. His voice sounded exhausted when he called. "Mom, we need to talk about the situation. Stephanie's consulted with a lawyer about our options. William, please come alone. Just you and me, like it used to be. We need to have an honest conversation." He hesitated. "Stephanie won't like that. This is between mother and son first," I insisted gently. "Please." To my relief, he agreed to come the following evening. I spent the day preparing his favorite meal, hoping food might ease the tension. When he arrived, he looked thinner than at Christmas, with new lines around his eyes. Our conversation started awkwardly, neither of us quite knowing how to bridge the chasm that had opened between us. "I'm sorry I kept this from you," I began. "Your father and I always planned to share everything with you, but we wanted to make sure you were established in your own right first, not dependent on an inheritance." William nodded slowly. "I understand that part, I think. Dad always emphasized earning your own way." He paused, picking at his food. "But Mom, we've been really struggling. The mortgage is underwater. Stephanie's business isn't making money. My salary barely covers our basic expenses. Why wouldn't you help more substantially?" "I have helped every time you asked," I reminded him. "But giving large sums without addressing the underlying issues would only enable more poor financial decisions. The amounts you and Stephanie spend don't align with your income, William. That's the real problem." His face flushed. "Stephanie has certain expectations about our lifestyle. She comes from a family that values appearances, even at the cost of financial security," I asked gently. Before he could answer, the doorbell rang. My heart sank when I opened the door to find Stephanie standing there, her expression stormy. "I knew you'd try to turn him against me," she accused, pushing past me into the house. "William, get your coat. We're leaving." William stood looking torn. "Stephanie, I told you I needed to talk to my mother alone and let her manipulate you." "I don't think so." She turned to me, eyes cold. "Have you made a decision about the transfer? Our lawyer is ready to proceed if you haven't." "There will be no transfer under threats," I said firmly. "William and I were having a private conversation about our family matters." "I am family," she snapped. "And unlike you, I'm actually trying to secure William's future. By spending beyond your means and blaming others when the bills come due," I questioned, my patience finally wearing thin. "By trying to build something meaningful." Stephanie's voice rose. "Not everyone wants to live like a pauper with millions in the bank." William stepped between us. "Both of you, please stop." "No, William, it's time you heard the truth," I said, moving to my desk. I retrieved a folder I had prepared after consulting with Jack's financial advisor. "I've been doing some research since Christmas." I handed William several printed pages. "These are credit reports and loan applications under both your names. Did you know you're carrying over $180,000 in credit card debt, or that there's a second mortgage on your house that was taken out last year?" William stared at the papers in shock. "That can't be right. We have some credit card debt, but nowhere near that amount. And we never took a second mortgage. Stephanie's face had gone pale. Those are private financial matters. You had no right to investigate us. I didn't investigate you, I clarified. I asked Jack's financial advisor to help me understand your situation before considering any financial assistance. He found some concerning discrepancies. I turned back to William. The second mortgage and 3 of the largest credit cards are in your name only, but the signature authorizations show they were all signed on days you were out of town for work. I checked against your business travel records you shared with me for tax purposes last year. The implications hung in the air. William turned slowly to Stephanie, whose expression had shifted from outrage to something more calculating. Stephanie, his voice was barely a whisper. What is this? Your mother is trying to create problems between us, she said quickly. This is exactly what I was afraid of. Then explain the second mortgage, he insisted. When was it taken out? Where did the money go? We needed it for the business, for inventory and marketing, she said defensively. I was going to tell you when it started showing returns. $120,000. William's voice rose. Without discussing it with me first, I hated seeing my son in pain, but he needed to understand the full picture. There's more, William. The advisor found evidence of a separate bank account in Stephanie's name only. Large transfers from your joint accounts and from these credit cards have been going there for over a year. That's my business account, Stephanie insisted, but her confidence was wavering. The business is registered as an LLC with both your names, I countered. This account isn't connected to the business at all. William was putting the pieces together. Is that why you've been so interested in Mom's money lately? Because you've put us in a financial hole we can't get out of? Stephanie's strategy shifted before our eyes. Fine. Yes, we're in debt. All the more reason your mother should help us. This money should be supporting our family, not sitting untouched. It's not about the money anymore, William said quietly. It's about the lies. You've been spending us into massive debt without my knowledge, forging my signature on loans. Why, Stephanie? What were you thinking? And then, in her desperation, Stephanie revealed her true intentions. I was thinking I deserved better than this mediocre life with your underachieving career. I was planning for my future, creating options for myself. She gestured angrily toward me. Then I find out your mother has been sitting on a fortune that could solve everything, and she won't part with a penny to help her own son. To help me, William repeated, or to help you leave me once you secured the money. The room went silent. Stephanie's expression confirmed what William had guessed. The separate account, the hidden debt, the sudden intense interest in my finances, it had all been part of a calculated exit strategy. You never planned to stay, did you? William asked, his voice hollow. Once you got enough money, you were going to leave. Stephanie's mask finally slipped completely. What choice did I have? Look at this family. A mother who lives like she's poor despite millions in the bank and a son who's satisfied with mediocrity. I deserve more than this, William. I deserve the life I've been preparing for. In that painful moment of truth, William found his strength. Standing taller than I'd seen in years, he looked at his wife with clear eyes for perhaps the first time. Get out, he said quietly. Get out of my mother's house and don't come back. You're choosing her over me, Stephanie sputtered. I'm choosing truth over lies, William replied. I'm choosing integrity over greed. Mom may have kept a secret to protect our family values, but you've been actively working to destroy us from within. Stephanie gathered her purse, her face contorted with rage and frustration. You'll regret this, both of you. This isn't over. As she stormed out, slamming the door behind her, William collapsed into a chair, his face in his hands. I moved to his side, placing my hand gently on his shoulder. I'm so sorry, William, I whispered. No, Mom, he said, looking up with tears in his eyes but a new resolve in his voice. I'm the one who's sorry. I should have seen this coming. I should have protected our family. As we sat together in the aftermath of Stephanie's departure, I knew we were entering uncharted territory. The road ahead would be difficult with legal and emotional challenges we couldn't yet imagine. But for the first time since that disastrous Christmas dinner, I felt a glimmer of hope that our family bond might survive after all. The weeks that followed were among the most difficult of our lives. William temporarily moved into my guest room, shell-shocked by the implosion of his marriage and the revelation of Stephanie's deceptions. Together, we began untangling the financial mess she had created, discovering new debts and unauthorized accounts almost daily. "I still can't believe how blind I was," William said one evening as we reviewed credit card statements at my kitchen table. "All those business trips she claimed to be taking, the inventory she said she was building, none of it was real." "She was very convincing," I replied gently. "Don't be too hard on yourself." The true extent of Stephanie's plans became clearer when William found emails on their shared computer. She had been in contact with a real estate agent in California looking at luxury condos in her name only. There were also exchanges with an old college boyfriend who had recently divorced, their tone increasingly intimate over the past 6 months. "She was planning her escape," William said, his voice hollow, "just waiting to secure enough money before she left." As predicted, Stephanie didn't go quietly. 3 days after her dramatic exit from my house, a certified letter arrived from her lawyer. It contained allegations about my mental competency and financial management, threatening to petition the court for conservatorship if I didn't agree to their reasonable financial settlement. William was outraged. "She can't possibly think this will work." "It's a scare tactic." I agreed, though the accusations still stung. We engaged our own lawyer, Jack's longtime attorney, who had helped set up our estate planning. After reviewing the situation, he assured us that Stephanie's case had no merit. "Your financial records show perfect competency," he explained. "Living frugally despite wealth isn't evidence of mental decline. If anything, it shows prudent management. As for her claims on the estate, marriage doesn't automatically entitle her to her mother-in-law's assets." Still, Stephanie continued her campaign. She made tearful phone calls to family members, portraying herself as the victim of a controlling mother-in-law and a husband who chose money over marriage. Some relatives believed her creating painful divisions within our extended family. Her social media offensive intensified with vague posts about elder exploitation and financial abuse in families. She never named us directly, but made the targets clear enough to generate sympathy and outrage from her followers. What Stephanie hadn't counted on was William's newfound strength. The shock of her betrayal had awakened something in my son, a resilience and clarity I hadn't seen since he was young. "I'm filing for divorce," he told me one morning in February. "I've given her chances to negotiate reasonably, but she's not interested in anything but maximum financial gain." The divorce proceedings were predictably contentious. Stephanie demanded half of William's potential inheritance money he didn't even have, claiming she had built her life around the expectation of family wealth. Her lawyer argued that knowledge of my assets constituted a form of marital property. Our attorney easily dismantled these arguments, presenting evidence of Stephanie's financial misconduct, including the forged loan documents and hidden accounts. The judge was not sympathetic to her claims, especially when bank records showed she had transferred substantial sums to her private account the very day after discovering my wealth at Christmas. Throughout this ordeal, William and I rebuilt our relationship on a new foundation of honesty. We had long conversations about Jack's investment strategies, our family values, and my hopes for the future of our wealth. "Dad would be proud of how you've handled this," I told William one evening as we looked through old photo albums. "You've shown the same integrity he valued so highly." William smiled sadly. "I wish I'd paid more attention to the lessons he tried to teach me about money. Maybe I wouldn't have been so easily misled." "We all have blind spots when it comes to love," I said. "What matters is how we learn and grow from our mistakes." By early spring, the divorce was finalized. Stephanie received far less than she had demanded, though William agreed to take responsibility for the marital debts, even those she had incurred deceptively. "I just want this chapter closed," he explained. With legal matters settled, we faced the question of what to do with the $12 million that had caused such turmoil. After much discussion, we made several decisions together. First, I helped William clear the legitimate debts from his marriage and purchase a modest home near mine, large enough for comfort but within his means to maintain on his engineering salary. Second, we established the Jack Henderson Memorial Foundation with $5 million dedicated to financial literacy education for young adults. "Dad always said knowledge about money was more valuable than money itself," William reminded me. "This honors his legacy." The foundation work gave William a new purpose. He volunteered evenings and weekends teaching budgeting workshops at community centers and local colleges. His first-hand experience with financial manipulation made him a particularly effective and empathetic instructor. That December, we celebrated a peaceful Christmas, just the two of us in my cozy living room. No expensive gifts, no pretense, just honest conversation and genuine warmth. William had begun healing, focusing on rebuilding his life with the same values that had guided Jack and me. In January, William mentioned he had met someone while volunteering at the foundation. "Her name is Catherine," he said, a hint of color in his cheeks. "She teaches elementary school and came to one of our financial workshops for educators. We've had coffee a few times." Catherine turned out to be everything Stephanie wasn't: kind, unpretentious, and genuinely interested in William for himself, not his potential wealth. When he finally introduced us months later, I immediately saw why he was drawn to her. She had a warmth that reminded me of Jack, a grounded authenticity that couldn't be faked. "William tells me you're responsible for the foundation," she said during our first dinner together. "What wonderful work you're doing. I've already used some of the curriculum with my fifth graders." As their relationship grew serious, William approached the subject of money differently this time. "I've told Catherine about our family's financial situation," he informed me. "No secrets, no surprises." She actually laughed and said she hoped I wasn't expecting her to be impressed. By the following Christmas, Catherine had become part of our family celebrations. Together, the three of us planned new initiatives for the foundation, focusing on programs for women vulnerable to financial abuse and exploitation. "I've been thinking about Dad's philosophy," William told me as we sat by the fire one evening, Catherine's hand in his. "He always said wealth was a responsibility, not a privilege." "That's exactly right," I agreed. "I think I understand now what you and Dad were trying to protect me from all those years," he continued. "Money doesn't just buy things. It reveals character. Stephanie's true nature might have remained hidden if not for those millions." Catherine squeezed his hand. "Sometimes we have to lose something to gain perspective." As I looked at them together, I felt a peace I hadn't experienced since Jack's passing. The money that had caused such conflict had ultimately served its purpose, revealing true characters and reinforcing the values that mattered most. William had emerged stronger, wiser, and more aligned with the principles Jack and I had tried to instill. Our family wealth would eventually pass to him, but now I knew with certainty that he would manage it with the same care and wisdom as his father. "Mom," William said, interrupting my thoughts, "Catherine and I have been talking about expanding the foundation's work. We'd like your input on a new financial literacy program specifically for couples." As they outlined their ideas, I saw Jack's legacy living on through our son in ways far more meaningful than mere dollars and cents. The fortune that Stephanie had coveted had become a force for good, changing lives through education, rather than extravagance. The $12 million that had nearly torn our family apart had ultimately brought us closer together, reinforcing the truth Jack had always known: family loyalty and values matter infinitely more than wealth. In losing Stephanie, we had actually saved our family's soul. If you've ever had to choose between money and principles, or if someone has revealed their true colors when finances were involved, I'd love to hear your story in the comments below. Has money ever shown you someone's real character? Like this video. If you think William made the right choice, subscribe for more real-life family stories and share with someone who might need a reminder that integrity matters more than wealth. Thank you for joining me for this difficult chapter of my life. And remember that sometimes the most valuable inheritance isn't measured in dollars at all.